The 10 Plagues of Egypt are often read as a simple fairy tale, a sequence of random, magical punishments inflicted by an angry deity upon a stubborn king. A rigorous reading of the Book of Exodus reveals a highly calculated structure. This text documents a cosmic contest between the God of the Hebrews and the pantheon of Egyptian deities, fought on the literal and ideological territory of Pharaoh Ramses II, a monarch who claimed to be a living god. The text establishes the stakes of this confrontation immediately. Before a single plague falls, Aaron's wooden staff transforms into a serpent and swallows the others conjured by the Egyptian magicians. The cobra was the emblem of Pharaoh's power and a recognized Egyptian deity. The message is established early: Yahweh consumes the gods of Egypt. Analyzing this narrative requires a shift in perspective. We must interpret it through the lens of ancient Near Eastern culture and precise Hebrew linguistics. Under that lens, the narrative clarifies. The plagues operate as targeted, hyper-natural judgments. Pharaoh's hardened heart acts as a measure-for-measure psychological dismantling, and the Passover functions as an active, divine shield. Exodus presents a systematic, calculated deconstruction of the ancient world's most formidable theological and economic empire. Before analyzing the plagues, we must establish the baseline physical reality of the Israelites. They were an enslaved workforce driving the empire's construction, manufacturing mud bricks embedded with straw to maintain structural integrity. This was a severe, systemic socioeconomic oppression. To deliver this workforce, God unleashes a series of signs biblical scholars classify as hypernatural. These are not suspensions of physics, but the divine timing and extreme intensification of naturally occurring phenomena. Take the first sign. During severe seasonal flooding, the Nile River would occasionally carry a heavy sediment load containing reddish microorganisms, creating a lethal, oxygen-depleted bloom. The text describes the water turning to blood, a hypernatural intensification of this very ecology, executed at Moses' exact command. This diagram maps the ideological target. The Nile River was revered as the literal lifeblood of Osiris, the Egyptian god of the underworld. By turning the water an opaque, toxic red, the Hebrew god turns that supposed lifeblood into an actual river of death, directly executing the deity of the underworld in the minds of the Egyptian populace. This methodology scales. When a hypernatural disease strikes the cattle, it devastates the primary beasts of burden, immediately crippling the physical and agricultural supply chain of the empire. At the exact same time, it targets Hathor and Apis, Egypt's revered bovine deities. Destroying the livestock bankrupts the agricultural engine, while proving the absolute impotence of the animal gods tasked with protecting them. Every sign operates as a dual-pronged strike. They systematically dismantle the Egyptian economy on a physical level, while publicly executing the Egyptian pantheon on a cosmic stage. As the physical infrastructure of Egypt collapses, the narrative focuses on a psychological tension, Pharaoh's relentless stubbornness, summarized in the phrase, "the hardening of his heart." This phrase triggers a long-standing debate regarding human free will and divine sovereignty. Readers question the justice of God forcing an otherwise willing king to act against his own interests. This chart breaks down the English translation, hardened heart, to show how the original Hebrew text navigates that tension. The author deploys 3 distinct root words for hardening, alternating between active, passive, and reflexive grammar. The text indicates Pharaoh willingly participated in his own ruin. The most profound of these 3 words is kaved, which literally translates to be heavy. In the ancient Egyptian theology of the afterlife, a deceased person faced a final judgment, where their physical heart was placed on a scale and weighed against the feather of Mot, the goddess of truth and justice. The mechanics were strict. A heart that remained light passed into the afterlife. A heart that was heavy with sin and injustice failed the test and was instantly devoured by a monstrous deity. By repeatedly stating that Pharaoh's heart is kaved, heavy, the Hebrew authors weaponize Egypt's own theological vocabulary against its king. They declare him guilty by the standards of his own religion. Pharaoh enacted laws to systematically oppress and dehumanize the Israelite population. In return, God exacts a measure-for-measure punishment. He gives Pharaoh exactly what he cultivated, a heart so weighed down by its own tyranny that it loses the human capacity to choose what is right. The hardening of the heart operates as a cooperative, tragic judgment. It reduces a man who proclaimed himself a god to a heavily burdened, subhuman state. This ideological war culminates in the final judgment against the firstborns of Egypt and the establishment of Israel's defining festival, the Passover. Modern readers often treat the English word Passover as a geographic instruction, assuming it means to physically skip a marked house. We can correct this mechanical reading by identifying a device called synonymous parallelism. This is the defining characteristic of Hebrew poetry, where a second line of text reiterates and amplifies the exact meaning of the line immediately preceding it. This diagram illustrates the verb's true meaning in the book of Isaiah, chapter 31. The text reads, "Like birds hovering overhead, the Lord Almighty will shield Jerusalem. He will shield it and deliver it. He will Pesach and rescue it." Because the Hebrew word Pesach sits directly parallel to the word shield, its linguistic function is active protection. It does not mean to ignore or bypass. When we apply this definition to the 10th chapter of Exodus, the scene at the doorpost changes. The blood on the lintel acts as an invocation for Yahweh's active, hovering presence. The blood served a singular, highly specific purpose. It marked the precise threshold where God himself stood guard, actively blocking the destroyer from entering the home. Step back from the historical event in Egypt to analyze its massive legacy across the biblical canon. The Exodus established the primary logic of biblical redemption, the concept of a people being bought back from slavery through divine intervention and a sacrificial cost. The physical elements of that night evolved into profound theological symbols. The Israelites ate unleavened bread in their haste to escape. Over centuries of celebration, the act of clearing yeast from the house became synonymous with clearing out the corruption of sin. This timeline tracks how Paul utilizes that framework. He commands the Corinthian church to clear out the leaven of hypocrisy, anchoring his argument on Christ, their Passover lamb. Further right, Revelation recycles Egypt's hypernatural judgments, blood, darkness, and hail, to articulate the final cosmic judgments. The authors of the New Testament deliberately utilized the Exodus as eschatological foreshadowing. They pointed to the end of history by using the ultimate biblical archetype of deliverance. Ultimately, the Exodus stands as a linguistically grounded hypernatural model of deliverance. By dismantling the gods of Egypt and shielding his people, Yahweh established the structural framework for the entire biblical worldview.